and welcome to another episode of What's Worth Watching. My name is Brendan Day, and with me today is the director of Mallrats, Kevin Smith.
That joke is funny every time.
Every
single time. It gets better, honestly.
And I could do it every time, because Kevin Smith has done more than you think.
That's true. Oh, you're doing a different... Oh, yeah.
A lot of movies, podcasts, DC-related promotional material. He is always there. But yeah, how you doing, Kevin? We haven't really done one of these in a while.
I'm doing good. We haven't. We've been busy. We haven't seen. I know I haven't seen that many movies in a while. I think the highlight before this was I finally got around to watching Ex Machina.
For those that don't know, Kevin just got into law school. Congrats! He's been working like crazy.
It's a never-ending nightmare.
Yes, I just got a new part-time job, and I've been working a lot of nights and weekends. So we've been busy, not really watching too much stuff. But we did see this movie, Kevin. Mm-hmm. We saw Doctor Strange, the newest Marvel film.
15th, I think. 14th or 15th.
The 14th film.
14th film.
Which is crazy to me.
Overarching franchise, especially when some of them include, like, Ant-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot more coming. So yeah, Doctor Strange, directed by Scott Derrickson, who's directed a lot of horror movies I'm too afraid to see.
Insidious, I think, is his big one, right?
And Sinister.
Which I'm pretty sure I've seen and liked.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, this movie stars Benedict Cumberbatch, Rachel McAdams, Tilda Swinton, Mads Mikkelsen, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Benedict Wong, and the most effective texting and driving PSA I've ever seen.
You missed two characters, and those are Benedict Cumberbatch's American accent and
his goatee.
So three: his accent, his goatee, and the cloak, which honestly should have gotten like third billing, probably.
The cloak is the Groot of this movie.
The cloak it's amazing. It's amazing.
I did like how they introduced it. So let's start with you, Kevin. What were your thoughts on Doctor Strange?
I'm going to be a little bit biased, partially because it's a Marvel movie and I love pretty much all of these. Mm-hmm. Also because Doctor Strange is one of my guys, one of those characters that I always had a real thing for. So it's awesome to see him on screen. It's not their best movie, and I think that becomes very clear very early in that they wanted a character that was a lot like Tony Stark. Mm-hmm. It was, the snarky, arrogance, laid low type of archetype. The story is not the best they've ever done. I think, though, that a lot of the smaller components of this movie come together, and I think it rises to just about the middle of the pack for the Marvel movies. I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Yeah, I'll say before I get to my thoughts, the story it's not. I wouldn't say it's not great. It's just we've seen it before. The beats still play out over and over. It's not just Marvel films. It's a lot of action, fantasy movies in general.
Part of that is the source material, because a lot, you want to talk about these things all sounding a little bit similar. Mm-hmm. That's because most of the source material was written by a combination of conservatively 9 guys in a smoky bullpen in early 60s New York.
Right.
There's going to be some overlap.
Yes. So for my thoughts, this is interesting because we're kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum. You really like Doctor Strange, the character. Mm-hmm. I really know nothing about Doctor Strange.
That's fair.
I was a kid and learning about like comic book characters and Spider-Man and everybody, Doctor Strange was always the one that no matter how much I would see him in like the Marvel encyclopedias or those big ultimate guides you would get at school, there was not much information about him. His abilities and his origins were very vague to me, and a lot of different sources were conflicting. I'm like, what is this character's deal? I never really got a grasp on it. So I kind of went in this movie, I went in with an open mind, but I felt kind of, what's the word, I feel like this was like an exclusive party that not normal casual moviegoers would be interested in going to see.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I could see that.
It's like, say for example, casual movie fans that walk into, say, the 7th Harry Potter film. They're going to feel a little like, this movie's not for them, this is for the fan base of Harry Potter.
I could see that.
And I think Doctor Strange did its best to be a film that everyone can enjoy. Mm-hmm. And I think you can enjoy it if you're not a huge Marvel fan or a huge Doctor Strange fan. Mm-hmm. But there are some moments that I feel like can alienate some audiences.
Well, there's a lot of things that they like to do, especially because there's a lot of room in a movie like this where it's magic, where it's building a world. There's a lot of room to throw details in there that mean nothing to you if you're a casual fan, but mean a lot to you if you love the stuff. And actually, I think later on, I think it'd be a little bit fun because there's enough Easter eggs that I could just like run through 5 or 6 of them at a time, and I think we could do that a little bit later.
There's a lot of cool Easter eggs in this movie.
It's a lot like Guardians in that respect. Like I could name you 5 or 6 different actual comic book alien species that are in background shots, and it doesn't matter unless you're looking.
And as I say that, it's a miracle this actually got made.
Oh sure.
Like I still remember, like 10 years ago, I was watching the original Spider-Man movie DVD featurette. They're talking about how this movie is getting made, and one of the producers says there's only 2 Marvel characters everyone knows, Spider-Man and the Hulk. That is it.
Yeah.
That has definitely changed.
Oh sure.
A lot since 2003, and that still surprises me.
Judged by Halloween costumes alone, Iron Man.
This movie made so much money. It made what, 85 million? 80 million?
85 point something million dollars its opening weekend.
Incredible.
And between that and its foreign box office, by the time the box office closed Sunday, it had already beaten its budget. Probably with advertising,
right?
Which is something that a movie with, if you want to talk about characters that everybody knows, Dawn of Justice did not achieve that fast.
Let's talk about the story, I guess.
Sure.
So we start the movie like we start most of these movies, where it's a cold open, where we usually meet the villain before we meet the hero for the most time.
Yeah.
And we see a very violent beheading, but only the silhouette, because that's the PG-13 version of it, even though it's still horrifying to me. So that was an interesting little set piece where we meet the Ancient One, and
it shows
weird,
what I
trippy
think.
Stuff.
Yeah, and it shows what I think. What I think is probably this movie's biggest strength to a casual fan right off the bat, which is those special effects. And I mean,
amazing.
Right off the bat, it's a London street, I believe.
Yeah, later on it's London, but I'm pretty sure in the beginning it was. Yeah, I think that was New York.
Huh. Either way, it's a very crowded city street that they chase her out onto, and it's a cool little misdirect because you think you're in this ancient Tibetan castle, and you open the door, and
that was actually a nice moment. There. You're like, oh, this is in New York.
And he chases. They chase. It's one of those things. Who's really chasing who? They end up on the city street, and Tilda Swinton, who is, I think, for the amount of crap that they got for casting a white woman in a traditionally Tibetan male role.
Yeah. Hey, I'm glad it's a woman.
Yeah. I think she absolutely nailed this.
Yeah.
I think that
she's always good in everything.
Yeah, I think that the reason they hired her ended up being that like little bit of like humor that's in that character, which is not something that's always in the Ancient One, because the Ancient One does 2 things: portray ancient mystic stereotypes about Asian men and die.
And with the special effects, I remember we were saying in the theater, I told you I can't even begin to understand how they started planning out what this was going to look like. I know they were inspired by Steve Ditko and probably hip art in the 60s and things like that, but it felt authentic to me.
Yeah, it's got a geometry to it, is what it looks like. It starts with the basic image, the regular city street, and it moves and it spreads and it moves by a geometric pattern, and it looks intricate and planned. And it looks like if you were to imagine that someone was manipulating these things through a controlled force, that's how they would move it. It wouldn't just wipe away. It would change.
Very, very kaleidoscopic.
It's very MC Escher, is what I thought at the time.
Right.
So
moving on. So then we meet Benedict Cumberbatch's character, who is actually named Stephen Strange. He's a neurosurgeon. His best friend / ex-girlfriend is Rachel McAdams.
Although they do that movie thing where they say lover, even though I've never met a human being in my life who's referred to someone who dated as lover.
That's kind of weird.
Very strange.
Back to, now this when I saw him as a surgeon, and a really brilliant surgeon, it reminded me of, do you remember Winter Soldier when the Falcon kidnapped one of the Hydra agents?
Yeah. First name drop of Doctor Strange.
Yeah, they say like Bruce Banner, Stephen Strange, anyone that's a threat. Stephen Strange, were they referring to him as the sorcerer or as a neurosurgeon?
I would have to imagine it's the neurosurgeon as the sorcerer. I'm sorry. That's where the fact that this movie's timeline isn't explicit.
Yeah. Like, where does this take place? Does it take place over the course of many movies?
I would imagine so. So the way I took it to mean was, I don't know, I don't care that Scott Derrickson has said otherwise. When they dropped the line in there about one of the patients Doctor Strange has to treat potentially being someone testing an exosuit, you know, he's in an experimental armor or whatever.
Oh, was that?
I would assume. Now, what I don't believe is I don't believe it's Rhodes from Civil War. I don't. I think that would screw the timeline up completely.
No way.
I think it's one of the people that Justin Hammer was testing the suit in.
Oh yeah, and Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
The
So if you
split.
assume that happens,
that's actually pretty funny. Okay.
if you assume that happens for that to be on for the soldiers to get being hurt on film by Iron Man 2, assume they're happening during the events of Iron Man 1, right? That seems fair. Or thereabouts.
Well,
if he's on the road hearing about that case, then we can then assume he crashes. He goes through a bunch of years of mystical training.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And then he's maybe not out, and maybe he's not. I don't believe the events of this movie end before Winter Soldier, but I would imagine that maybe Hydra or Shield or whatever caught wind of him while he was training or something.
Maybe.
And this is stretching to make it fit because it's very clear they
I'm
just
sure
threw the
they'll
name
answer it
in.
eventually, but just
I don't even know that
thing
they
to
need
consider.
to. It's just one of those things. They threw the name in as like an earmark to be like, yeah, we're going to do this. And I think I have right now done as much stretching as you can do to make it fit.
So then we meet Stephen Strange. Not a very likable character, kind of arrogant,
Not
egotistic.
unlikable enough to be interesting though.
Yeah, I wasn't too interested with him.
Like clearly they thought that movie quotes the song Years thing was like, this is going to be his
that
thing.
completely threw me off. And was that supposed to tell us that he has a photographic memory? That told me he's just into pop culture.
I think that's what it was. He's like a too cool for you pop culture
cool guy.
which whatever. And this is also where we meet you mentioned his ex-girlfriend Rachel McAdams, who I happen to think is one of the biggest oversights in this movie, because I don't think since Natalie Portman have they spent the time.
She's given nothing to do.
I mean, the things she is given to do are great. The bit later on in the movie, I'm getting a little bit ahead here, but when he is assisting a surgery that she is doing,
that's good.
as a ghost, and she plays. Like, obviously, there's a little bit of, like, a fantasy movie, because if anyone actually experienced this, you just, like, freak out, pass out, and be done. But, like, the way she portrays, you know, a mix of terror and, I guess this might as well happen right now, which is kind of, like, acceptance of it. Yeah, and then the thing when the mop falls, it's a series of great comedic beats that she has, and it's a shame they don't give her more to do, and it's, like... And it's a comic book cut thing, but you know, you could have had her be Clea, which is Doctor Strange's traditional girlfriend.
Right.
You could have had her be Clea and just give her something to do.
Moving on, so Cumberbatch gets in the accident. Horrifying accident.
Oh yeah,
I don't know where you go from New York to those hills, but
going to a conference, so maybe upstate New York.
Maybe.
I don't know.
And I feel like I've driven through there before, because drives up to Oneonta are kind of like that. So I should know where he is.
Sure.
But either way,
well, I
don't text
imagine
and drive, kids.
I imagine you don't spend a lot of time driving through California on your way up to.
Definitely not.
On your way up, and that's like very clear where that is, because we don't have like.
So then he loses his hands. He tries to get them back. He learns
that
about.
Too. There's a series of shots that like more than I expected of the ruined hands. Like there's a couple of shots in the cast of them red and swollen, and there's shots with the needles coming out of them, and I was like, you know, I was expecting it to be like one shot of like mangled hands and then like gloves.
Well, they do emphasize the hands. Like I forgot to mention this in the beginning when we first meet Stephen Strange. We don't see his face first; we see his hands.
Yeah,
over and over again.
Which is a nice choice.
We realize, all right, this guy is good with his hands.
Mm-hmm.
No pun intended.
Ladies.
Also, spoilers for this podcast. I keep forgetting to say that. But you wouldn't be listening to this anyway, even if you didn't see the movie.
We assume.
We assume.
We assume.
So then, let's speed up a bit. He meets Wong and Tilda Swinton's character, the Ancient One. He goes through his first experience through the astral world.
The astral plane, the mirror dimension.
That sequence, I thought, was absolutely incredible.
The thing with the hands freaked me out. Mm-hmm. There's a sequence.
The hands were pretty creepy.
There's a sequence where he has basically what, you know, you or one of your acid friends from high school will tell you is like a bad trip, and it's him experiencing the full like length and breadth of the multiverse, like the world you didn't see before, and it's terrifying because at one point there's just thousands of hands over him, and that freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah. And there were a lot of cool. It kind of reminded me of a Space Odyssey. Some of the, I'm pretty sure they were inspired.
It's very
by
Star
most of that.
Childy. And then he goes into, he has his moment of like, I don't believe you, after the kind of unnecessary bit about not believing that the guy is the Ancient One.
Yeah.
And then
That felt kind of forced.
and then she goes through and, she opens his mind and he accepts her teachings and they go through teaching. And I thought for a training sequence, it was reasonably well handled.
Yeah.
None of it, like, it never felt like they were trying to do a montage, and it felt like, especially for a movie where so much of it is explaining a new set of rules, I feel like they handled the info dumps pretty well.
I agree. I totally agree.
And a lot of it, too, is about, I don't think
Which
we
is
actually
tough
mentioned-
because there's so much exposition in this.
Yes.
There's so many things they had to describe first to pay off later on. And I think they did a good job with that aspect of it.
Yeah.
What did you think of the villain? I forgot his name. Not Dormammu, the other one. Caecilius.
Caecilius.
Again, just another standard villain that is equal to Doctor Strange.
I
thought some of the bits were funny. I thought how they encountered each other was pretty unique. Like, they weren't enemies right away. Doctor Strange's like, "Who are you? What are you doing this?" This is
Doctor,
kind of
Mr.
weird.
Doctor, it's strange.
Yeah.
Who am I to judge?
I don't want to be here, but I mean, I guess I'll do it.
Sure. And I think the first thing you have to think about when you're looking at the character is obviously it's a waste of Mads Mikkelsen.
Yeah.
Anyone who's watched any 15 seconds of Hannibal will tell you that Caecilius could have been, and it's a nothing character, incidentally. It's a character that is the servant of another villain in one issue from a million years ago. And this is when Doctor Strange was a 10-page backup story. This is a nothing character that they made this into. But it's a waste of Mads Mikkelsen. But at the same time, I mean, it's not the best. I mean, the best is Tom Hiddleston by a country mile, and then probably all of the Netflix villains. But like, it's not Yellow Jacket. It's not Ivan Vanko.
I did find a lot of striking resemblance to Ant-Man to this movie. Like,
in a way,
but they do it in a way that's fresh, and I think the visual effects set pieces alone, where they're warping reality, that alone is worth the price of admission.
I would imagine so. Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of people say 3D. You have to watch this movie in 3D. I still don't think it's worth it to watch this movie. I mean, we watched it in 2D, but I feel like I would have an equal amount of fun with just a 2D experience.
Well, I think this is something that would come down to whether you have an affinity for that medium. I know some people like you. I know people, through the time at the comic shop. You've got to see whatever the movie is in the highest, most epic, most well-defined, high-definition manner possible. Otherwise, you don't feel like you're getting the full experience.
Yes.
I personally don't feel like that. I think that for, let's say, the average viewer, I think that watching this in 3D would honestly be a little disorienting.
Yeah, I would get sick, but that's me.
So, I think
never know.
I think it's fine the way it is. I think seeing it in 3D would probably not be a terrible experience unless you're prone to motion sickness. But I feel like I don't need it for something like this.
Let's move on to, they have a fight in London, cool warping of reality. I did like that normal humans aren't affected by it, where they don't see or perceive anything of it. That was pretty cool to me. So they're literally, that proves that throughout all the movies we've seen, there could be fights like that happening, and no one in the world would know.
Right.
There could be fights happening right now in this room, Kevin, and we would have no idea.
You just see like a drawer slam shut or something.
Like, what was that?
So they have the first fight in the Sanctum Sanctorum, which is his cool magic clubhouse.
Oh yeah, then we meet the Cape.
We meet the Cape, who is basically like a lovable
Cloak of
dog
Levitation.
character. The Cloak of Levitation, which helps him fly. The cloak has a mind of its own, which is consistently funny. From there, they basically they go from that fight. That fight culminates in the death of the Ancient One. which actually is capped off by the fact that they rush her to the hospital. And I think it's worth talking about because I really, really like the scene.
Yeah, I agree.
They rush her to the hospital and they play up the astral plane, the astral soul thing. And Doctor Strange has a conversation with Tilda Swinton in basically what is her last moment of life.
That was actually one of my favorite scenes of the movie.
I would agree.
They do a classic filmmaking technique that is always effective, where it's when the main character learns important lesson based off like one word. So Benedict Cumberbatch's like, well, what's it about? Like, is it about me or something? I forgot what the word.
It's not about you.
Tilda Swinton says it's not about you, and then you see the camera, what's called breaking the line, where you jump to 180, where it pans over and you see that Stephen Strange has a revelation, and we're told in our college classes about film is you don't break the 180-degree rule because it disorients the viewer and changes the landscape. But in that moment, it was perfect because it changed Stephen Strange's character.
Sure.
And I thought that was a brilliant way to use that technique.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think it was also, I think it's some of the strongest writing that the movie has. You know, she does the whole thing. Because you find out at some point that...
And I'm happy Tilda Swinton... I'm happy they actually ended up killing the Ancient One. Because no one dies in the Marvel films except for, like, Quicksilver.
Sure.
But I thought they were going to recover her and she'll just retire as a Sorceress Supreme.
Or she's
like
like
that.
the Nick Fury of magic.
I like that. No, she actually did fall and die from that building.
Yeah, and just...
Which is kind of morbid to say.
For plot purposes, you find out she was drawing on something called the Dark Dimension to sustain her life.
Oh, yes, we'll get
which is basically the MacGuffin of the movie. The Caecilius character wants to also break into the Dark Dimension. And basically find out at this point, because we're gearing up for our last act big battle, that the Dark Dimension is the home dimension of a demonic, let's say, entity called Dormammu.
I've come to bargain.
Who is arguably, with the possible exception of a character that we'll talk about later, is Doctor Strange's biggest enemy. Basically, she's kind of a little bit of a hypocrite, a large-scale hypocrite, for drawing on that power herself.
Yes.
Which basically leads him and his 1.5 sidekicks, because Wong is into battle against Caecilius one more time in Hong Kong.
I like the time gem set piece where he's reversing everything.
That felt a little neat to me. Like, I wanted to see him get into it a little bit with, because I want to see, magic blasts and stuff like that.
There's only so much of that you can do where it's just like, what's going on here?
Before you start getting images out there of, when...
I think the time was used effectively, especially later on, where he encounters Dormammu and he tricks him into a time loop.
Yeah. So, that's exactly what it does. Caecilius destroys, most of Hong Kong, and you find out that the gem that Doctor Strange has been wearing is one of the Infinity Gems from any number of Marvel movies at this point.
Is that the final gem?
No, there's one more, and that's probably going to be like the cold open of Infinity War. Maybe. Is him getting the one and then coming through for the rest. But basically, he goes in, saves everything by reversing time, and then hops into the Dark Dimension, because there's always a portal in the sky. And hops into the Dark Dimension to challenge
this. It's the Fantastic Four portal in the sky.
Basically.
That's what I'm going to call it.
And Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad had one.
Every movie.
Everybody was like, the Avengers made all the money. It's clearly the portal in the sky. That's the reason they made all the
Skyline from 2008.
Skyline. Everyone's favorite movie.
That's a deep cut.
But yeah, and then we get into what I think is honestly one of the more clever things they do in the movie, which is how they resolve the conflict with Dormammu. It's like a real, if you read a lot of fantasy, not even comic books, but fantasy stuff, not stories that revolve around magic, it's a lot of things like this. It's a lot of not using it for might, it's using it for mental stuff, tricks.
He doesn't fight his enemies, he outwits his enemies.
Yeah.
I like that a lot about him.
And by the time he gets to Dormammu, he flat out dies. What we assume to be thousands of times, basically.
He Edge of Tomorrow's his way to victory.
He straight up groundhogs.
Did you know Dormammu's face was Benedict Cumberbatch's face?
I did.
That was pretty cool.
It was. And it was a great way not to have to explain another cast member.
Yeah. And it describes that, I think someone describes that because Dormammu doesn't really have a form. He just takes the shape of a human face so that he's talking to relates to that person.
Yeah, it's like one of those. He's like a Cthulhu monster. He's one of these like
Indeed.
huge, incomprehensible in scale and power type monsters.
You want to talk about a little neat? I did think that Rachel McAdams' character was a little too accepting of what Benedict Cumberbatch was up to.
the entire world of magic,
And also,
exploding
he's in the doctor's lab in his like gown and his cape.
Yeah.
And no one's like, oh, that's kind of weird. Like, I haven't seen Stephen Strange in a few months. Like, now he's a cult leader. He looks like
Yeah, I like that she flat out says, "So you joined a cult."
yeah,
Like that was another great she has a large number of the good comedy beats in this movie.
right. Yeah, she's like the funny one out of us.
Yeah.
Out of all.
I think it's funny too when we're doing the whole thing, Dormammu, because this is the thing, and it's already a meme. Dormammu, I've come to bargain, is what he says every time, because he traps Dormammu in this time loop and forces Dormammu to come and like talk to him because he can't fight him.
Yeah.
The accent gets
Hilarious.
real patchy.
Yeah, there was
At
that
that
one
point.
screaming moment where I get it. It's tough when you're screaming and having an accent.
The accent holds for a lot of time. It
If-
really
if
does.
If there was anyone that could do it, it was him.
Yeah.
Definitely him.
Yeah, it really does. Although this is something where, if I'm being perfectly honest, could have been English.
Yeah. He
Don't care.
He could have been like in the United Kingdom. There's a freaking Sanctorum in London.
Sure, and I mean,
That could have been his.
Even if you say he's still in America, because Marvel superheroes are a very American concept.
And
even,
yeah, cool.
even if-
Every superhero's in New York, but
yeah, well, not everyone. Tony Stark lives in, or did. I think now he lives.
Well, he had a
he lives in
town in
upstate
New
New York now.
New
But
York.
yeah, the first three movies he lived in. The first three Iron Man movies he lived in California.
that's true.
Um,
Yeah, I'm good with wrapping up. But are there any more points you want to talk about?
well, I think it'd be fun to go through some Easter eggs.
Yeah, sure. Lay them on me. There
Well, we
was
got-
there was one you were telling me about the staff or someone's brother who's like a ghost.
Oh yeah, there's
Yeah,
there's
tell me
a
that
bunch of them. So all throughout the movie, there are references to different like demonic and godlike entities that are Marvel Comics like deep cuts, even from the thing that powers Baron Mordo, who is something we didn't talk about, is his like best friend who's
Oh
going to
yeah!
be
Oh my god! Chewie Taylor was like one of the best parts of this.
yeah,
movie.
he's very good.
Oh my god!
He's very
totally
good.
forgot.
He plays like he basically plays the goose to Doctor
And-
Strange's Maverick.
Really quickly, I think his not his change, but like his reveal of he might be the villain later
Mm-hmm.
on was handled really well. Where I understood why he left and why he's doing what he's doing in the future.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
He is a purist of his own beliefs.
Yes, there are too many people using this power source, and we know what it's capable of. We know
And
how
we
corrupted
broke
it
our
is.
own rules.
Yeah.
It helped save humanity, but maybe that's not the way it was supposed
Mm-hmm.
to happen. It's like the Doc Brown says, no one should know it too much about their own destiny.
Sure.
And yes, moving on.
No, but yeah, there's like a lot of his boots are are the boots of Voltor, which is a god. There's his staff is the staff of the Living Tribunal, which is a major Marvel Comics like in-universe deity. It's who basically is like the god judge of all the different multiverse worlds. So if anything goes wrong in the multiverse at large, it's the Living Tribunal's job. The black guy who was guarding the New York Sanctum Sanctorum is
Yeah.
Daniel Drum, who is the brother of Jericho Drum, who is Dr. Voodoo in the comics. Dr. Voodoo, as Jericho Drum as Dr. Voodoo, is actually haunted by the ghost of Daniel Drum. One of the shots behind the Wen Wong, who is a character I enjoyed, but I think
I
could
think
probably have done
he'll
more
be
with.
better later on.
Yeah,
He served his purpose for this.
one of the staff he picks up to go to war at the end is called the Wand of Watum, which is a recurring.
The circle one, right? They like turn
No,
into a
that's
circle.
the-
Or is that something else?
Well, it turned into a circle. No, it's the one with like it's one stick with two fins coming out of each direction.
Right, okay.
Yeah. The other one is the one that I don't think anybody got, not even like IGN or Newsarama or anything, is that when there's a group shot of Wong putting the Masters of the Mystic Arts together, one of the women behind him has a very distinctive staff that has a little bit like it's a staff with it arcs into a circle and then it comes back up to a point. That's the Staff of One, which was used by Nico Minoru in the Runaways comics. The
Right.
Runaways are a group of teenagers in Los Angeles who find out that their parents are supervillains, and they're all different archetypes. So one's a magician, one's this, one's that.
And then they rock on.
They run, yeah. They run away, and what we're supposed to understand is that is Nico, who's the magician girl's mother.
Okay.
And that's why she's got the staff and everything like that.
That's
So that's
cool.
a neat little runaway.
Yeah, I mean, I love in movies like this that they fill as many empty spaces as they can with like a Easter egg from an old comic or any reference to something else for those hardcore fans. That's always really cool.
Yeah, and they do a nice job of controlling themselves with these, where it's not just like a long, loving shot on something nobody understands.
Yeah.
It's all just happening.
It's like, oh, did you notice that? Cool. Before we wrap it up, can we just talk about the post-credit scenes? We'll start with the one at the very end where Mordor is stealing magic from people. Cool scene, cool fight.
Yeah,
sequence.
there's a bit in the movie where there's a character you find out that's working basically kind of like an everyday magic to walk where he would otherwise not have been able to walk.
Yeah, that was nice.
And this conflicts with Mordor's plan to basically kind of trying to thin out the herd
Too
of
many
magic
sorcerers.
users. Yeah.
So I'm sure he'll be a cool villain later on in life.
With that actor, how could he not be?
Yeah, of course. He's known for playing a lot of villains. He's the guy in Serenity and stuff like that.
Yeah, there was something else too. 2012.
Oh yeah, he was
He's
in
the
2012.
scientist.
Was he the villain though, or was he just a
No, what's
scientist?
his name is the villain.
There's no villain. It's the waves.
No, there's like a businessman type. Unfortunately, a Donald Trump type that like wants to like hoard space on the Ark, and he has like a number of showdowns with future Baron Mordo.
Also, so the mid credit scene is where Doctor Strange, who is pretty much a complete Doctor Strange, like a master of his craft, pretty much.
By this point,
with orange gloves,
which those are not great. But basically, at this point, he's like the guy you go to for the behind this. Like he's the watchman of the world's magical stuff.
Yeah.
So like, there's weird stuff. It's his job.
He's
now.
before customs before you enter.
More or less.
He's like Men in Black just for the ones that do things.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, he's like a magical Men in Black.
I would
type.
love to see like a week by week sitcom of him like interviewing incoming people to Earth. It's like, so why are you here on Earth?
There's just like one family
Like a wobbling monster.
There's just like one family that keeps getting like their youngest daughter possessed. He's like, I did this last week, Patricia. I don't know what's going on in this house.
But he's talking to Thor, who's in street clothes, telling him that he's looking for his father Odin, who, as we've seen from some set photos, is a hobo now.
Yeah. They're gonna do like a reverse. They're gonna do like a reverse of like of what Thor is doing, where you know when you know, spoilers for Thor: The Dark World, when
Everyone's favorite Marvel film.
when it's revealed that Loki takes over, he obviously has taken over and replaced Odin and kicked him out somewhere. So this is gonna be a thing where Anthony Hopkins is on Earth and he doesn't remember, and they have to jog his memory, and then you know he'll have learned a lesson in humility just in time for Thanos to probably kill everybody in Asgard.
That sounds fantastic. Also,
Learn to walk again, maybe.
So, are Stephen Strange's hands fixed, or does he still kind of have like that shakiness to him? Because I noticed throughout the movie he was conducting magic, but his hands are still kind of in pain.
That's
which,
the way.
props on acting for Benedict Cumberbatch for doing that. But is he cured, or has he chosen not to be cured?
It's
and just
generally
new
been
life?
portrayed as. I don't think I don't think you could find a part in the movie that really gives an explicit answer. But the character has generally been portrayed as someone who, and there's an excellent run of comics by Jason Aaron that's ongoing right now. That's really probably the best, because he doesn't generally have long running books. This is probably the best study you've had of this character in a modern context, more or less ever. But the way they chose to portray the character is that he's got severe nerve damage. So when he's actually doing day-to-day things, he has limited use of his hands. But there's
He was able to shave though.
there's something that's either psychosomatic or actually magical that lets him do the hand gestures for magical purposes.
Right.
And they portray it almost in a way that's like he doesn't know if it's psychosomatic or magical, and he doesn't really care because this is what he has to be doing.
Yeah.
And then actually they sometimes have, that's why Wong hangs out with him. You know, Wong lives in the house.
For him.
He does his day-to-day stuff because
That's funny.
Doctor Strange can't.
Nice. So Kevin, Was this movie worth watching?
I think absolutely it was. I think it's really Marvel movies are event movies now. Everybody's seen a handful. My mother has seen a few. You know, you see them, and I think separate from that it is, but I think even more so it is because of that.
I agree. I think this one's worth watching. You should definitely give it a chance. I mean, most people haven't made $85 million.
It did good money,
and I still think the visual effects alone are worth the price of admission. They are not only authentic but innovative.
Phenomenal cast.
And it seems seamless with the real live action going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I still cannot begin to understand how they planned and mapped that out, and it's fascinating.
It's really, you have to imagine it would have taken hours to figure out the geometry of all of it.
Mm-hmm. And it's weird because it seems like they're shooting like a year before these movies come out, or even less. And like, oh, that's it? Like the movie's already out, and you realize they've been spending so much just on the visual effects alone. That they don't have to shoot that much. They do like a few principal photography, then a few reshoots, and that's it.
I bet you that there were people working on the effects for this movie from well before it was cast.
Yeah. Probably way before they even announced it.
Oh, yeah.
Which is fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
But all right. Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for
Always a
listening,
pleasure.
guys. Our next one will probably be what? Rogue One? Star Wars
I think that's the
story?
next one we could guarantee, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to see
I mean, it's a month and a
Solo.
half, but...
It's a month and a half away. I did try to take off work, so we'll see what happens.
Cool.
But all right, thanks for listening, and see you later.